Souza tightened her ponytail, the elastic digging into her hair just the way she preferred it. The creaky wooden floor of the gym felt familiar beneath her feet, a comforting contrast to the chaos of the bustling streets outside. The noise of honking cars and chattering pedestrians seeped through the cracked windows, a constant reminder of the world beyond her sanctuary. But within these four walls, Fla was free to dream, free to soar. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the gym, Fla's heart raced with anticipation. Today was another day of grueling practice, another opportunity to hone her skills in artistic gymnastics. The scent of sweat and determination hung in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of cleaning supplies used to wipe down the equipment. She stood before the balance beam, a slender piece of wood that had become both her nemesis and her best friend. "Mon Fla, focus!" her coach Mr. Almeida called out, his voice cutting through the fog of her thoughts. He was a stocky man with a passion for the sport that was palpable. His enthusiasm ignited a fire within her, pushing her to give her all. Fla nodded, taking a deep breath as she stepped onto the beam. As she began her routine, she blocked out everything: the noise from the street, the pressure of expectations, and the struggles that loomed over her family. Each movement was a dance, a testament to her dedication. She executed a series of jumps and turns, her body moving with the precision of a finely tuned instrument. The beam wobbled slightly beneath her weight, but Fla's focus remained unwavering. "Good, keep that energy up," Mr. Almeida shouted, his eyes fixed on her every move. Fla could feel the weight of his gaze, but instead of feeling pressured, it motivated her. She was determined to prove that all the sacrifices were worth it. After a particularly challenging routine, Fla leaped off the beam, landing gracefully on the mat. She felt a rush of exhilaration, but it was short-lived. The moment she turned to face Mr. Almeida, the world outside crashed back in. The noise from the street was louder now. Children were playing and vendors were shouting, trying to catch the attention of passers-by. For a fleeting moment, her heart sank, reminding her of the reality waiting beyond the gym's walls. "Let's take a break," Mr. Almeida said, sensing her distraction. "You've done well today." Fla nodded, wiping the sweat from her brow as she made her way to the side of the gym. She sat down on a mat, her breath coming in heavy gasps. The exhaustion was tangible, but it was nothing compared to the struggles she faced outside this bubble of training. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through social media, watching videos of gymnasts competing on international stages. Each flip and twist ignited a longing deep within her, a yearning for greatness. "Fla, you okay?" called out her friend Letitia, who had come to watch her practice. Letitia was a spark of energy with her vibrant personality, always cheering Fla on from the sidelines. "Yeah, just tired," Fla replied, forcing a smile. Letitia plopped down beside her. "Nay, you've been killing it lately. What's next? Olympics?" Fla laughed softly, the weight of her dreams pressing down on her shoulders. "If only it were that easy." "Easy? You make it look easy," Letitia teased, nudging her playfully. "You're going to be a star, just wait and see." Fla appreciated the encouragement, but doubt lingered in the back of her mind. The road to the Olympics was paved with obstacles, and financial struggles were a constant shadow looming over her dreams. Her mother, Maria, worked long hours at a local diner, often returning home exhausted, her spirit worn thin. Fla knew she couldn't burden her with worries about training fees or equipment costs. "Let's go grab some lunch," Letitia suggested, noticing Ella's contemplative silence. "I'll treat you, my treat today." Fla's stomach growled at the mention of food, and she nodded, grateful for the distraction. As they made their way out of the gym, Fla felt the warmth of the sun on her skin, a stark contrast to the coolness of the gym. The streets were alive, filled with the vibrant energy of her neighborhood, yet the reality of her life weighed heavily on her heart. Later that evening, Fla returned home to find her mother in the kitchen, the aroma of rice and beans filling the small apartment. Maria stood at the stove, stirring a pot with a look of determination on her face, but Fla could see the fatigue etched into her features. "Hey, Mom," Fla greeted, wrapping her arms around her mother in a warm embrace. "Fla, how was practice today?" Maria asked, her smile lighting up the dimly lit room. "Good. I think I nailed my balance beam routine," Fla replied, pride swelling in her chest. Of course you did, meu amor. You always do, Maria said, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. But remember to take care of yourself. You can't push too hard. Fla nodded, knowing her mother's concerns came from a place of love. I will, Mom, I promise. As they sat down to eat, Fla couldn't shake the feeling of urgency that hung in the air, like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. They spoke about mundane things, the weather, Maria's long shifts at the diner, and the upcoming neighborhood festival, but beneath the surface, an unspoken tension lingered. Fla noticed her mother's tired eyes and the way her hands trembled slightly as she held her fork. Are we okay, Mom? Fla ventured, breaking the fragile silence. Maria looked up, her gaze searching Fla's face. Of course, sweetheart. Why wouldn't we be? Fla hesitated, wanting to voice the worries that plagued her mind, but fearing the burden it might place on her mother. It's just, I know things are tight. I don't want you to worry about my training fees. Maria sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly. Fla, you know I'll do anything for you. Your dreams are my dreams too. But we need to be realistic. Fla's heart sank. I am being realistic, Mom. I want to make it to the Olympics. I need to keep pushing. Maria's expression softened and she reached across the table to squeeze Ella's hand. I believe in you, but you also need to take care of yourself. You're my priority, not just as a gymnast but as my daughter. Fla nodded, appreciating her mother's love but feeling the weight of their circumstances. As they finished dinner, her phone buzzed on the table, drawing her attention. It was a message from Mr. Almeida. Fla, can you meet me tomorrow? I have some important news. Her heart raced as she read the message. She looked at her mother, who was clearing the table. Mom, Mr. Almeida wants to talk to me tomorrow. He says he has important news. Maria paused, her brow furrowing slightly. Important news? What do you think it is? I don't know, Fla admitted, a mixture of excitement and anxiety swirling within her. Maybe he's going to tell me I'm on the national team. Maria's eyes widened in surprise, and a smile broke across her face. Oh, Fla, that would be amazing. You deserve it. Fla felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, but it was quickly overshadowed by the reality of their situation. The notion of national recognition was thrilling, but it also meant more pressure, more expectations. Just promise me you won't forget how hard we've worked for this, Maria said softly, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. Fla nodded, but deep down she knew the journey was just beginning. As she lay in bed that night, the weight of her dreams pressed against her like a heavy blanket. She closed her eyes, envisioning herself on the Olympic stage, the crowd cheering her name. But with that vision came the reminder of her mother's sacrifices, the struggles they faced, and the uncertainty of what tomorrow might bring. The night passed slowly, and the next morning arrived with the sun peeking through her window. Fla felt a sense of urgency coursing through her veins as she prepared for her meeting with Mr. Almeida. Every stretch and every flip seemed to carry more weight today, each movement a step closer to realizing her dreams. When she arrived at the gym, she found Mr. Almeida pacing in front of the balance beam, his expression serious. Fla's heart raced as she approached him, uncertainty gnawing at her. Good morning, Fla, he said, his voice steady but laced with anticipation. I have some news that could change everything for you. Fla swallowed hard, her palms clammy as she waited for him to continue. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, the air thick with possibility. You've been selected for the national team, he said, his words hanging in the air like a promise. Fla's breath caught in her throat, disbelief washing over her. Really? Are you serious? Yes, you've worked incredibly hard, and it's time for you to showcase your talent on a larger stage, he said, a proud smile breaking across his face. In that instant, the weight of her dreams felt lighter, the struggles of her past fading into the background. Fla's heart soared, but she couldn't shake the feeling of urgency that remained. This was just the beginning, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges. The morning sun crept through the thin curtains of Ella Souza's small bedroom, casting a soft glow on the worn-out gymnastics posters that adorned the walls. The sound of the distant city was a constant reminder of the life she was fighting against. Fla stirred awake before dawn, her heart racing with dreams of Olympic glory, but the weight of reality quickly settled on her shoulders. She knew what lay ahead, a grueling day of training that would push her body to its limits. As she slipped out of bed, Fla glanced at her mother, Maria, who was still asleep on the makeshift bed in the corner of the room. Maria had worked late into the night, sewing clothes to earn a little extra money. Fla felt a pang of guilt as she watched her mother's peaceful face, knowing the sacrifices she made. With a quiet determination, she tiptoed into the cramped kitchen to prepare a quick breakfast, bread with a thin layer of margarine, a luxury they rarely indulged in. "You're up early, Fla," Maria said, her voice raspy from sleep as she shuffled into the kitchen, her hair tousled and eyes half closed. "Just wanted to get a head start on training," Fla replied, forcing a smile. "I have to push harder if I want to make the national team." Maria sighed but nodded, her expression a mix of pride and concern. "I know, sweetheart. Just don't forget to take care of yourself too. You can't pour from an empty cup." Fla nodded, though she felt a flicker of doubt. She had been pushing herself harder than ever, and the toll was beginning to show. She hurriedly finished her breakfast and grabbed her worn-out gym bag, filled with the essentials, chalk, grips, and a water bottle she had decorated with stickers from competitions past. The streets outside were still quiet, the early morning air crisp and fresh. Fla took a deep breath, letting the coolness invigorate her spirit. As she jogged toward the gym, the familiar sights of her neighborhood flashed by, the crumbling walls of the buildings, the stray dogs wandering aimlessly, and the vibrant murals that told stories of resilience and hope. Arriving at the gym, Fla was greeted by the smell of sweat and the sound of rhythmic music echoing off the walls. The large training space was filled with beams, mats, and uneven bars, her sanctuary. Her coach, Tanya, a no-nonsense woman with an eye for perfection, was already there, stretching near the balance beam. "Good morning, Fla." "You're early today," Tanya said, her eyes sparkling with approval. "I like to see that dedication." Thanks, coach. I want to make the most of every minute," Fla replied, her heart racing with excitement. "All right then, let's start with warm-ups," Tanya commanded, clapping her hands. The other gymnasts, some of whom had been Fla's friends since childhood, began to gather, stretching and chatting among themselves. But Fla noticed a few of them exchanging glances, their whispers barely audible. "Why does she push so hard?" "She'll just get hurt," one of them murmured, casting a sideways glance at Fla. "Yeah, she's obsessed with that Olympic dream." "It's not like she has a chance," another added with a dismissive wave of her hand. Fla felt a pang of hurt at their words, but she steeled herself. She had grown used to the skepticism. It was part of the journey. She was determined to prove them wrong. As the morning progressed, Fla's training intensified. She moved from apparatus to apparatus, her body flowing with the music. The rhythmic thuds of her feet on the mat, the sharp crack of her hands gripping the bars, and the soft thump of her landing filled the air. Each routine was a step closer to her dream, but it also pushed her body to its limits. Halfway through the session, as she practiced her dismount from the beam, disaster struck. She miscalculated her landing, her ankle twisting awkwardly beneath her. Pain shot through her body and she crumpled to the floor, gasping for breath. "Fla!" Tanya rushed to her side, concern etched on her face. "What happened?" "I think I twisted my ankle," Fla whimpered, tears brimming in her eyes. The pain was sharp and relentless, but it was the fear of failure that gripped her heart even more. "Let's get you checked out," Tanya said, her voice steady, though Fla could see the worry in her eyes. The other gymnasts had gathered around, their expressions a mix of concern and curiosity. As Tanya helped her get up, Fla leaned heavily on her coach, her mind racing with the implications of the injury. Would this mean the end of her Olympic dreams? In the corner of the gym, one of her friends, Lara, whispered to another gymnast, "I told you she was pushing it too hard." "This is what happens." Fla's heart sank. None. She could hear the whispers, the doubt that surrounded her. As they made their way to the medical room, she couldn't shake the feeling of despair. Inside the small medical room, the doctor examined her ankle, poking and prodding. "It's a sprain, but it could have been worse," he said, his voice calm. "You'll need to rest it for a few weeks and we'll do some therapy." Fla's heart fell. "But the national team training camp is in a week. I can't afford to miss that." The doctor paused, his brow furrowing. I understand your passion, but pushing through an injury can lead to more severe damage. You need to listen to your body. But I can't. I have to keep going, Fla protested, her voice rising in desperation. I've worked too hard to let this stop me now. Fla, you need to be realistic, Tanya interjected gently. We all want you to succeed, but you also need to take care of yourself. We can't have you sidelined for months. Fla felt a wave of frustration wash over her. I can't just sit around and do nothing. She could feel the tears threatening to spill, but she blinked them away, determined not to show weakness. This was her dream, and she couldn't let a setback define her. With her ankle wrapped in a bandage, Fla returned to the gym, where the atmosphere had shifted. The other gymnasts were back to their routines, but she could sense the whispers behind her, the flickers of doubt that still lingered. Hey, Fla! Lara called out, her voice brightening the mood. Want to come watch us practice? You can give us tips. Fla forced a smile, grateful for her friend's attempt to lift her spirits. Sure, I'll do my best. As she settled onto a bench watching her friends practice, Ella felt a mix of emotions. She was proud of them, but a deep longing gnawed at her. A longing to be out there with them, to flip and twirl, to conquer the beam and vault. Days turned into a blur of rest and frustration. Fla spent hours watching gymnastics videos and studying routines, taking notes and dreaming of the day she would return. With each passing day, however, self-doubt began to creep in. Are you sure you're okay? Maria asked one evening as they shared a simple dinner of rice and beans. You seem distant lately. I'm fine, Mom. Just thinking about training, Fla replied, forcing a smile. Maria set her fork down, her brow wrinkling with concern. You know, it's okay to take a break. You don't have to push yourself so hard. I can't, Mom. I've worked too hard to let this injury take away my chances. Fla snapped, the frustration boiling over. Fla, I only want what's best for you. I support your dreams, but I don't want to see you hurt, Maria said softly, her eyes pleading. Fla felt a twinge of guilt. I know, but this is my chance. I can't let it slip away. Maria sighed, her shoulders slumping. Just promise me you'll be careful. I don't want you to end up regretting anything. The conversation hung heavy in the air, a reminder of the sacrifices they both had made. Fla felt torn between her ambition and the love of her mother, but she was determined to push through. As the training camp approached, Fla threw herself into rehabilitation exercises, determined to strengthen her ankle. With each small victory, a step without pain, a gentle stretch, her hope began to flicker back to life. On the day of the camp, Fla arrived early, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. The gym was bustling with energy, gymnasts stretching and warming up, the air thick with determination. Fla felt a surge of adrenaline as she stepped onto the mat, her body tingling with anticipation. Welcome to the camp, everyone. Tanya's voice rang out, commanding attention. Oh! This is your chance to show what you're made of, to prove you belong on the national team. Fla's heart raced, the pressure settling in. Aye! She knew this was her moment, but the nagging fear of her injury loomed in the back of her mind. As she began her warm-up, she felt the eyes of her peers on her. Would they see her injury as a weakness? Would they question her ability to perform? With her ankle still bandaged, Fla took a deep breath and focused. She would not let doubt win. She would show them, not just her friends but herself, that she was stronger than any setback. Fla Souza felt the weight of the world on her shoulders as she entered the gym that morning. The familiar smell of sweat and chalk filled the air, mingling with the faint scent of cleaning products that barely masked the years of hard work embedded in the walls. The rhythmic sound of feet hitting the mat echoed in her ears, a constant reminder of the dedication required to achieve her dream. With the Olympics looming closer, every training session felt like a battle for her future. "Fla, you're late again," shouted her coach Ricardo, a tall man with a booming voice that could cut through any distraction. His brow furrowed in concern, but there was also a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. They had been through so much together. "You need to be focused. This is the final stretch." "I know, coach," Fla replied, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear as she tied her ponytail tighter. I just lost track of time. I was working on my routine in my head. Ricardo nodded, but the lines on his forehead deepened. Less thinking, more doing. You need to be ready for the trials. Every moment counts. With a deep breath, Fla stepped onto the mat, her heart racing. In her mind, she could see the Olympic rings glistening in the sunlight, urging her forward. She shook off the nerves and began her warm-up, the familiar motions calming her. The floor routine was her favorite. It was where she could express herself fully. Each leap and twist was an extension of her spirit, a dance that told her story of struggle and resilience. As she practiced, she observed the younger gymnasts in the corner of the gym. They were gathered around an old mat, giggling and attempting to replicate her moves. Fla couldn't help but smile at their enthusiasm. She remembered when she was in their shoes, dreaming of greatness, yearning for guidance. "Hey, you guys!" Fla called out, her voice carrying warmth. "Do you want me to show you how to do that flip?" The girls looked at each other, eyes wide with excitement. "Really? You'd teach us?" one of them asked, her face lighting up. "Of course. Just watch closely," Fla replied, her heart swelling with pride as she demonstrated the move. She executed it flawlessly, landing with precision. The girls erupted in applause, and Fla felt a sense of purpose wash over her. It was more than just about her. It was about inspiring them, showing them that dreams could be chased, no matter how distant they might seem. "Wow, you're amazing, Fla," another girl exclaimed. "Can you teach us how to do the floor routine like you?" "Sure, let's work on it together," Fla said, her voice full of encouragement. As she guided them through the steps, she felt a renewed determination within herself. Each smile and laugh from the younger gymnasts revitalized her spirit. However, as the days passed, the pressure began to mount. Training became more intense, and Fla found herself struggling to maintain her physical health. She often felt exhausted, her muscles aching from the relentless routines. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, she collapsed onto the floor, breathing heavily. "Fla, are you all right?" Ricardo rushed over, concern etched on his face. "I'm fine, just tired," she managed to say, though deep down she knew something was off. The pressure of the upcoming trials was suffocating, and the fear of failure gnawed at her insides. "You need to listen to your body," Ricardo said firmly. "If something feels wrong, speak up. We can't afford to risk injuries now." "I'll be okay," she insisted, forcing a smile. "I just need to push through. I can't let my team down." As the weeks rolled by, tensions at home began to rise as well. Fla's mother, Maria, worked tirelessly to support her daughter's dreams, often sacrificing her own needs. One evening, after returning home late from practice, Fla found her mother waiting for her with a worried expression. "Fla, you need to talk to me. You're pushing yourself too hard," Maria said, her voice trembling with concern. "I can see it in your eyes. You're not eating properly. You need to take care of yourself." "I'm fine, Mom. I have to keep training if I want to make the Olympic team," Fla snapped, the stress of competition spilling over into her home life. "Look at you. Nah?" Maria exclaimed, gesturing towards Fla's tired face. "This isn't the way to achieve your dreams. I want you to succeed, but not at the cost of your health." Fla's heart raced with frustration. "You don't understand. You've sacrificed so much for me. I can't let you down now. If I don't train hard, I might not make the team." "Fla, I'm not asking you to give up. I just want you to find balance," Maria pleaded, her voice softening. "I'm proud of you, but I need you to take care of yourself too." Fla turned away, feeling the tension crackle in the air between them. The weight of her aspirations felt heavier than ever, and for a brief moment she questioned whether she could truly achieve her dreams. The following day at the gym, Fla was more withdrawn. She struggled to focus, her mind clouded by the argument with her mother. Ricardo noticed her distracted demeanor and pulled her aside. "Fla, what's going on? You're not yourself," he said gently. She hesitated, the words caught in her throat. "I had a fight with my mom. She doesn't understand how important this is to me." "Sometimes our loved ones see things we can't," he advised, his tone soothing. "They worry because they care. Maybe it's worth talking it out with her. You're stronger when you have their support." I don't know if I can, Fla admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel like I have to prove myself alone. Proving yourself doesn't mean doing it all by yourself, Ricardo replied, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You have a team, and that includes your family. Lean on them when you need to. Fla nodded, appreciating his words but still feeling a heaviness in her chest. The pressure of the upcoming trials loomed like a storm cloud and she struggled to see a clear path forward. As the days flew by, Fla poured herself into her training, desperate to drown out her doubts. With each leap and twist, she fought against the fears that threatened to consume her. Yet, in the quiet moments between routines, the rift with her mother lingered in her mind like a shadow, reminding her that she couldn't escape the reality of their relationship. One evening, after a particularly exhausting session, Fla found herself alone in the gym, the only sound the faint echo of her breaths. She stared at the mirror, examining the girl who had dedicated her life to a dream that felt increasingly out of reach. Is this really worth it? She whispered to her reflection, her voice cracking. What if I fail? Just then, the younger gymnasts entered, their laughter filling the space. They were bursting with excitement, and Fla felt a flicker of hope reignite within her. She remembered why she had started this journey in the first place, to inspire and be inspired. Fla, can you show us that routine again? One girl asked, bouncing on her toes. Fla smiled, her heart warming. Of course, let's do it together. As she demonstrated her routine, the girls mirrored her movements, their eyes wide with admiration. Fla felt a sense of purpose returning. She was not just training for herself, she was also paving the way for these young dreamers. In that moment she realized that her journey was intertwined with theirs, their hopes were her hopes and their struggles mirrored her own. Later that night, as Ella lay in bed, she replayed the day's events in her mind. The joy of mentoring those girls had been a reprieve from her stress, and she longed to share that same happiness with her mother. The argument weighed heavily on her heart, and she knew she needed to confront it before it further strained their relationship. Mom, she called out softly, sensing her mother in the next room. Yeah, sweetie? Maria replied, her voice cautious. I'm sorry for how I acted the other night, Fla said, her words tumbling out. I know you're just looking out for me, and I've been so focused on training that I haven't been listening. There was a pause, and Fla felt her heart race, unsure of how her mother would respond. I'm glad you said that, Fla. I worry about you because I love you. I just want you to be happy and healthy. Fla took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. I want that too, Mom. I just get so scared sometimes. I don't want to fail. You won't fail, my love. Just remember, no matter what happens, you have me cheering for you, Maria said, her voice warm and reassuring. Fla smiled through the tears that threatened to spill. Thank you, Mom. I'll try to remember that. As she drifted off to sleep, a sense of clarity washed over Fla. She understood now that her journey was not just about achieving greatness, but also about embracing the support and love that surrounded her. The road ahead was still filled with challenges, but she felt ready to tackle them head-on, knowing that she didn't have to face them alone. The sun rose in the sky, casting a golden hue over the bustling streets of Rio de Janeiro. Fla stood at the entrance of the gym, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Today was the day of the Olympic trials, an event that could change the trajectory of her life forever. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the polished floor and the faint aroma of chalk that lingered in the air. "La, you ready?" called out her coach Carla as she approached with a clipboard in hand. Her short hair framed her face, and her expression was a blend of encouragement and seriousness. "Yeah, I think so," Fla replied, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. The weight of expectations hung heavily on her shoulders, not just her own but those of her mother Maria, who had sacrificed so much for her dream. "Just remember what we practiced. Focus on your routine and don't let anything distract you," Carla advised, placing a reassuring hand on Fla's shoulder. Fla nodded, though the doubt that crept into her mind was hard to shake. She had worked tirelessly to get to this point, but the fear of failure loomed larger than ever. As she stepped onto the mat, the world around her faded away. The noise of the audience, the bright lights, and the judges' stern faces blurred into the background. All she could think about was her routine, the culmination of years of hard work and dedication. Fla took her position and closed her eyes for a moment, visualizing each move as she had done countless times before. "Okay, Fla, let's do this," she whispered to herself, opening her eyes and taking a deep breath. The music began, and she launched into her routine with grace and precision, every movement flowing seamlessly into the next. The thrill of performing surged through her, and for the first time that day she felt a sense of confidence. "Look at her go," one of the spectators whispered to her friend. "She's amazing." Fla could hear the supportive murmurs, and it fueled her determination. She executed her flips and turns with the finesse of a seasoned gymnast, her body a perfect blend of strength and elegance. But as she approached the climax of her routine, her mind began to race. A flicker of doubt snuck in, causing a split-second hesitation. In that moment of panic, she stumbled. Her foot landed awkwardly, and the world seemed to tilt. Fla's heart sank as she felt the ground rush up to meet her. Time slowed down, and she could almost hear the gasps of the audience. But then something deep within her ignited. She couldn't let this be the end. With sheer willpower, she regained her balance and pushed through the remaining elements of her routine. "Come on, Fla, you got this," Carla shouted from the sidelines, her voice cutting through the chaos in Ella's mind. The encouragement gave her a boost, and she focused, channeling all her energy into the final moves. As she landed the last tumbling pass, she felt a rush of adrenaline wash over her. "Fla, yes!" Carla cheered, clapping her hands, a bright smile illuminating her face. Fla couldn't help but return the smile, a wave of relief flooding through her as the music came to an end. She stood tall, chest heaving, and took a moment to soak in the applause that erupted around her. The judges conferred among themselves, and Ella could feel her heart pounding in her chest. She had stumbled but recovered, and that was something to be proud of. After what felt like an eternity, the head judge stepped forward with the results. Fla held her breath, eyes wide with anticipation. "Fla Souza, your score is..." The judge paused for dramatic effect, a suspenseful silence enveloping the room. 87.5. "You have qualified for the Olympic team." The roar of the crowd was deafening. Fla's heart soared as she processed the news. She had done it. Years of struggle, sacrifice, and pain culminated in this moment. She looked into the stands, searching for her mother, and when their eyes met, Fla felt a surge of happiness. Maria was standing, tears streaming down her face, clapping and shouting her daughter's name. "Fla, you did it!" Maria's voice rang out, filled with pride and joy. "Mom!" Fla yelled back, her voice barely breaking through the noise. She rushed off the mat, her feet barely touching the ground as she made her way to the stands. With each step, the weight of their struggles felt lighter, and the rift from their earlier argument faded into the background. When she reached her mother, Fla jumped into her arms, feeling the warmth and love that had always been there, despite their recent tensions. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom." Maria hugged her tightly, her voice trembling with emotion. "You're my champion, Fla. I always knew you had it in you." As they pulled away, Fla noticed the proud smiles of her friends who had come to support her. They rushed over, enveloping her in a group hug, their excitement palpable. "You were amazing, Fla!" one of her friends exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with admiration. "I can't believe you almost fell and still nailed it." "Yeah, but you know what? I didn't let it stop me," Fla said, beaming with newfound confidence. "I'm going to the Olympics." The group cheered, their voices blending together in a chorus of joy. However, beneath the surface of celebration, a nagging feeling lingered in La's heart. The earlier argument with her mother was a shadow that refused to dissipate. Although they had shared this victorious moment, the unresolved tension still hovered over them. As the crowd began to disperse, Ella took her mother's hand and led her away from the noise. "Can we talk?" Fla asked, her voice steady but soft. Maria looked at her, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Maria replied, her tone gentle, yet Fla could sense the underlying worry. "I know we've been through a lot, and I wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened before," Fla began, her eyes searching her mother's face for understanding. I felt so much pressure. I didn't mean to take it out on you." Maria sighed, her expression softening. "Fla, I understand. I've been feeling the pressure too, trying to make ends meet and support your dreams. I just want what's best for you. I know, Mom, and I appreciate everything you've done for me, Fala said, her voice thick with emotion. I just wish we could talk about it more, instead of letting it build up. Maria nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. You're right. I've been so focused on your gymnastics that I forgot to check in with you, how you were really feeling. I'm proud of you, but I want to be part of your journey, not just a spectator. Fla smiled, relief washing over her. Let's promise to communicate better. I don't want us to drift apart, especially now that I'm going to the Olympics. Deal, Maria said, pulling Fla into another embrace. We're in this together, always. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Fla felt a renewed sense of hope. The bond between them was stronger than any challenge they faced. She knew that despite the hurdles ahead, they would navigate them side by side. Later that evening, Fla celebrated with her friends at a modest restaurant, the vibrant energy of Rio echoing outside. Laughter filled the air as they shared stories and dreams of the future. Fla felt alive, her heart swelling with pride and joy. Okay, Fla, what's next? One of her friends asked, leaning forward with curiosity. You've qualified for the Olympics. What's the plan? I want to train harder than ever, Fla answered, determination shining in her eyes. I want to show everyone that I can overcome any obstacle. Yeah, and we'll be right there cheering for you, another friend chimed in, raising her glass in a toast. To Fla, the future Olympic champion. Everyone raised their glasses, and Fea couldn't help but smile at the support surrounding her. She felt invincible, ready to take on the world. As the night wore on, the celebration slowly dwindled, but the warmth of camaraderie lingered in the air. Fla returned home, her heart still racing from the day's events. She climbed into bed, replaying the moments of the trials in her mind. The adrenaline, the fear, and ultimately, the triumph filled her thoughts, and she finally felt like she was on the right path. But amid her happiness, a voice in the back of her mind reminded her of the challenges that still lay ahead. The journey to the Olympics was just beginning, and she had to prepare herself for the grueling training and the pressure that would come with it. As she drifted off to sleep, Fla could only hope that the bond with her mother would continue to strengthen, and that together they would face whatever came next in their lives. The world was vast, and her dreams were within reach. With renewed determination, Fla Souza was ready to embrace the future. Under the dazzling lights of the Tokyo Olympic Arena, Fla Souza stood at the edge of the mat, her heart racing as the deafening roar of the crowd surrounded her. It was a cacophony of cheers, gasps, and the rhythmic thumping of drums, a symphony of emotions that echoed the dreams of countless athletes. She could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders, the anticipation thickening the air like a palpable entity. Fla closed her eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply, channeling every ounce of her nervous energy into a single thought. This was her moment. Go get Fla, a familiar voice shouted from the stands. It was Maria, her mother, waving frantically, her face a mix of pride and anxiety. Ella's heart fluttered at the sight of her mother, the woman who had sacrificed so much for her dreams. In that instant, Fla felt a surge of determination coursing through her veins. She would not let her mother down. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena, calling her name. Fla Souza from Brazil. As she stepped forward, the floor beneath her felt solid, grounding her as she focused on the routine she had rehearsed countless times. Each movement, each twist and turn was etched into her muscle memory, a testament to her hard work and dedication. The music began, and Fla launched herself into her performance. The first series of flips and jumps flowed seamlessly together, her body moving with grace and precision. The crowd erupted into applause, a wave of encouragement that washed over her. Fla felt like she was floating, every leap taking her higher, closer to her dreams. As she transitioned into her complex series of spins, she could hear the gasps from the audience. The rhythm of her heart synchronized with the beat of the music, and she was lost in the moment, every worry and pain fading away. But just as she prepared for the final acrobatic pass, disaster struck. In a split second, her foot landed awkwardly on the mat, and a sharp pain shot through her body. Fla stumbled, her focus wavering as her hand instinctively flew to her face. She could feel the warm trickle of blood seeping from a cut above her eyebrow, but she couldn't afford to stop. The crowd gasped collectively, but Flay, fueled by adrenaline and sheer willpower, forced herself to regain her composure. "Keep going, Flay, you can do this," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the chaotic sounds of the arena. She took a deep breath and, with a fierce determination, she pushed through the pain. The final moves of her routine were a blur, but she executed them with an elegance that seemed almost supernatural. As she landed her last vault, the mat absorbed her impact, and she stood tall, breathing heavily, her heart racing with the thrill of having completed the performance. The arena erupted into deafening cheers, but all Flay could feel was the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She quickly wiped the blood from her face, trying to focus on the judges as she raised her arms in triumph. She had done it. She had finished her routine despite the injury that threatened to overwhelm her. As she exited the mat, her coach, Lara, rushed toward her, concern etched across her features. "Flay, are you okay?" she asked, her voice a mixture of alarm and pride. "I'm fine, I just need to catch my breath," Flay replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "You were incredible. I can't believe you pushed through that," Lara exclaimed, wrapping her arms around Flay in a tight embrace. "You've shown everyone what true resilience looks like." Flay's eyes sparkled with a mix of pride and pain. "I don't know if I can watch the score," she admitted, biting her lip as they moved away from the mat. "Just breathe. No matter what happens, you've already won in my eyes," Lara said, gently squeezing her shoulder. As they waited for the scores, Flay's mind raced with thoughts of her mother. Would Maria be proud? Would she understand the sacrifice LA had made? The injury burned like a reminder of the struggle she had faced on this journey, the years of training, the financial struggles, and the moments of doubt. Finally, the scores flashed on the screen, and Ella's breath caught in her throat. The numbers glowed brightly, a silver medal score. The realization sunk in, and she felt a wave of relief wash over her. Silver! She had done it. "Flay, you did it!" Lara screamed, her excitement echoing in the air. Flay turned to her coach, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I can't believe it! I actually did it!" she shouted, her voice cracking with emotion. The announcer's voice broke through her thoughts, calling her name once again. And now, for the medal ceremony. Flay's heart raced as she made her way to the podium, the weight of the silver medal around her neck feeling both heavy and exhilarating. The crowd roared with applause, and she glanced at the sea of faces in the audience. Among them she spotted Maria, tears streaming down her face as she cheered for her daughter. Flay's heart swelled with pride as she thought of all the sacrifices her mother had made for her to be here, on this grand stage. As the national anthem played, Flay stood tall, her chest puffed out with pride. The medal gleamed against her leotard, a symbol of her hard work, her perseverance, and the dream that had seemed so distant just a few years ago. She closed her eyes, taking in the moment, the sound of her country's anthem filling her with a sense of belonging and purpose. When the ceremony concluded, Flay stepped down from the podium, still in a daze from the whirlwind of emotions. As she made her way through the crowd, she was met with congratulatory hugs and pats on the back. "You were amazing, Flay," one of her teammates exclaimed, beaming with pride. Flay smiled, her heart full. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without you all pushing me." As the excitement of the moment began to settle, she sought out her mother, who was fighting through the crowd to reach her. When they finally locked eyes, Maria rushed forward, enveloping Flay in a tight embrace. "I'm so proud of you, my girl," Maria exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. "You're a champion, you did it." Flay's heart swelled with love as she hugged her mother tightly, feeling the warmth of her support. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. Thank you for believing in me," she whispered, tears of joy welling in her eyes. "Always, Flay. You're my inspiration," Maria replied, pulling back to look her daughter in the eyes. "You showed the world what it means to fight for your dreams." Flay beamed, her spirits soaring. In that moment, she knew that every sacrifice, every painful training session, and every moment of doubt was worth it. She had not just earned a silver medal, she had become a symbol of resilience, strength, and hope. As they walked away from the podium, hand in hand, Flay looked back at the arena, the cheers still ringing in her ears. The journey had been long and arduous, but she had emerged victorious, not just for herself but for everyone who had ever dared to dream. "Ready for the next chapter?" Maria asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Leah smiled, her heart brimming with possibilities. "Absolutely, this is just the beginning." Together they stepped into the future, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them, united by love, resilience, and an unbreakable bond. Fla Souza stood on the balcony of her small apartment in the suburbs of Rio de Janeiro, the morning sun casting a warm glow over the city. The vibrant colors of graffiti murals adorned the walls below, while the sounds of the bustling streets merged into a familiar symphony of life. Just weeks ago she had stood on a podium, a silver medal gleaming around her neck, the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice. Yet as she stared out over the horizon, a heavy weight settled in her chest, a stark contrast to the joy she felt during the Olympic celebration. "Fla, breakfast is ready." Maria's voice echoed from inside, breaking her reverie. Fla turned away from the view, the memories of her mother's sacrifices flooding back. Maria had worked tirelessly, juggling multiple jobs to support FLA's dreams, often foregoing meals to save money for training fees. The love between them was undeniable, but the strain of their journey often led to misunderstandings and unspoken tensions. As Fla entered the modest kitchen, the smell of rice and beans filled the air. Maria was standing by the stove, stirring a pot with a determined expression. "You need to eat well, especially now that you're famous," she said, trying to lighten the mood as she dished out a generous portion onto a plate. "I'm not famous, Mom. I'm just—" Fla began, but Maria cut her off. "Just a silver medalist at the Olympics. That's something, Fla. You're a hero to so many. You need to embrace that." Maria's eyes sparkled with pride, but Fla could sense the underlying worry in her mother's voice. "I just want things to be normal again," Fla replied, taking a seat at the small table. The weight of expectation felt heavy on her shoulders. The media attention, the fans, the pressure to perform again, it was all so overwhelming. "Normal? You just achieved something extraordinary. You need to let yourself be celebrated." Maria's hands trembled slightly as she poured a glass of juice, betraying her own anxiety beneath her cheerful facade. "Maybe, but I still feel lost," Fla admitted, staring down at her plate. The food blurred before her eyes, and she felt tears prick at the corners. Maria sat down across from her, concern etched on her face. "What do you mean?" "Everything has changed. The spotlight, the interviews, the fans. It's all so different. And I feel like I'm still the same girl from the gym, struggling every day." Ran her fingers through her hair, frustration bubbling inside her. "And then there's us. There's still so much we need to talk about." The room fell silent, the air thick with unspoken words. Maria's expression shifted and Fla could see the realization that their relationship needed mending. "I know things have been tough, Fla, but we'll figure it out, I promise." Fla nodded, but deep down she was still wrestling with the emotional toll of the Olympics and the unresolved tension between them. Later that day, after the dishes were washed and the sun began to set, Fla decided to take a walk to clear her mind. The streets felt different now, as if they were holding their breath, waiting for her next move. As she strolled through her neighborhood, she was greeted by familiar faces. Children played soccer in the dusty streets, and older residents sat on their porches, sharing stories and laughter. Fla felt a pang of nostalgia, remembering the carefree days before gymnastics consumed her life. "Fla, you're back!" shouted a boy named Lucas, running up to her with a wide smile. "Did you really win a medal? That's so cool." Fla smiled back, the warmth of his enthusiasm lifting her spirits. "Yeah, I did. But it's not just about the medal, you know. It's about everything that got me here." "Like training all the time?" Lucas asked, his eyes wide with admiration. "Exactly. And dealing with injuries and all the hard days," she replied, a hint of seriousness creeping into her tone. "But you guys should keep playing. It's important to have fun too. Come on, join us," he urged, pulling her toward the makeshift field. Fla hesitated, the pull of her training commitments tugging at her. But as she watched the kids laugh and play, she felt a longing for that simplicity. "Okay, just for a little bit," she finally agreed, her heart lightening. The game was chaotic and messy, but that was the beauty of it. Ba lost herself in the moment, forgetting about the pressures that loomed over her.